Om Shri Shailesha Dayapatram Dhibhaktyadiguణarnavam Yatindrapravanam Vande Ramyaja Mataram Munim Lakshmi Natha Samarambham Nathayamuna Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Yo Nityamachyutapadam Bhujayugmarukma Vyamohatastatitarani Trinayamene Asmat Guror Bhagavatosya Dayeka Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charano Sharanam Prapadye माता पिता युवतयस्तनया विभूतिः सर्वं यदेव नियमेन मदन्वयानाम् आद्यस्य नः कुलपतेर्वकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदङ्घ्रियुगलं प्रणमामि मूर्ध्ना भूतं सरश्च महदाह्वय भट्टनाथ श्रीभक्तिसारकुलशेखरयोगिवाहान् भक्ताङ्घ्रिरेणुपरकालयतीन्द्रमिश्रान् श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशमुनिं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम्. What we just chanted is called the Taniyan. Acharya Taniyan. Acharya Taniyan means
குலசேகர ஆழ்வாரோடது இன்னொன்னு இருக்கு. அவரோட இது ஒண்ணு, கும்பே புனர்வசு, அவர் பிறந்ததை பத்தி. கும்பே புனர்வசு ஜாத்தோ கேரளே சோழ பட்டனே கௌஸ்துபாம்சம் தரா தீரம் குலசேகரம் ஆசிரயே.
very nice, very nice. Thanks, Ma. So next time we will chant that also. Thank you, Ma. So every Acharya usually has a specific Taniyan for them. So Taniyan is an ode to the Acharya, which means you are propitiating the Acharya. So this Acharya Taniyan that we chanted at the start has most of the main Acharyas. And Kulasekhara Alwar also features in that. He's called Bhaktisara Kulasekhara. Bhaktisara Kulasekhara Yogi Vahan. And what Amma just chanted is a specific Taniyan to Kulasekhara Alwar. So we will add that into from the next week's chant. So usually so this particular the common Taniyan has Kulasekhara Alwar in that, which means it shows the importance of this particular Alwar. The other names that appear there are Ramanuja, and then Yamunacharya, Nathamuni. So these are very prominent acharyas or figureheads in Vaishnava Sampradaya, particularly the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. And in that, Kulasekhara Alwar also features in that. Taniyan means he holds a pretty high position. Okay. Now, why is it so? Is because of the kind of way, the life that he led. So the life that Kulasekhara Alwar led was of extreme devotion. Extreme devotion. And such devotion it borders with madness. Right? There is a borderline with madness to that kind of ecstatic devotion. When somebody is experiencing, it is, and we've heard stories of Mirabai drinking poison and acting like a mad woman, or not being affected by it, and she's laughing. She drinks poison and she's not affected by it. And then we've heard stories of, for example, Abhirami Pattar, who drinks, who's not, he's drunk with the devotion of Devi, that everybody he sees them as any lady he sees the lady as Devi and falls at her feet. So ladies in the village, they'll try to run away from him. So there are many such saints who have lived in a completely ecstatic state of devotion and have been seen as mad men or mad women by society, because socially they are not engageable. It's very difficult to engage with them socially, because you don't know at what time they'll do what, because of the state they are in. It's very difficult to, for transactional purposes, it's difficult to engage with such people. Kulasekhara Alwar was one such person, but the interesting thing was he was born into a royal family. So he was the king in the Cheranadu. Cheranadu is the Kerala, the present day Kerala region. He was a king And he came from the Travancore dynasty. So one of their primary Bhagavan is also Padmanabha Swami, right? So a lot of these kings there, they consider themselves as a servant of the Lord. Generally, the tendency there is, I am not ruling, I am serving Bhagavan. I am not ruling the kingdom, but I am serving Bhagavan and taking care of his subjects. I am taking care of Bhagavan's people. This is the general bhavana. But Kulasekhara Alwar was, he crossed all kinds of limits in that also. So the stories that go around him, of course, you'll find a lot of stories on the internet, etc. But the focus that I would like to look at is, one is, of course, we'll look at the outline of his life, but then also to look at how he lived his life through this journey, right? In terms of where did he keep his focus and attention while he did what he had to do. So as a king, he had to continue to do the kingly duties of governance, of ensuring the right law and order enforcement and governance and all of that, right? So he had to run all of that on an ongoing basis. But his mind was constantly in a state of devotion, which means his mind was thinking about Krishna, about Rama, and all of those different kinds of different and the different leelas in the Puranic literature or Ithihasic literature. So, for example, he would listen to a lot of Ramayana. He listened to a lot of Ramayana stories and listened to all the stories of Krishna Leela, the Bhagavatam stories he'll listen. And he'll spend a lot of time listening to that. And through that, he would develop extreme association with the characters there, to the extent that he will almost feel as though those events are happening in the present moment. So there are stories of him when there is narration of Rama fighting and Lakshmana is fallen and Rama is fighting and he's trying to save Sita. While he's listening to the story, he gets so absorbed that he really feels that Rama is right now fighting somewhere and he needs help. And he immediately goes and asks he gathers his army, tells his army, let's go, we have to help Lord Rama. He's fighting alone with so many asuras. We have to go and help him. We have to go and help rescue Sita Mata. So he gets so drawn by that incident or that absorption in that particular incident. A lot of times it happens to us, right? When we are watching a movie, obviously we also connect with the emotion of the actor and actresses and we start crying and weeping, or we also go through some of those emotions. But here, but we do recognize that no, that is still a movie and I am outside the movie. It's a movie that I'm watching. Even though you cry and you weep, you still kind of disassociate yourself with that. But here, out of so much of love for Rama, so much of love for, later we'll see in Krishna, the love for Krishna also, he starts getting real in terms of his emotional state. So he gathers army and he says, let's go and fight. And then the story says that then later Rama himself appeared in front of him in a vision and said that no, or somebody did, and comes around and says that no, don't worry, Sita Mata has been rescued. Because they didn't want to go and tell him, and nobody had the audacity, because the king, right? Nobody can go and say, Lusani. Are you crazy? There's no Rama and Sita there. You're talking about Treta Yuga, which is like several thousands of years ago. But he says they would come and say that no, Rama has won the war and Mata Sita has been rescued and everything is fine. So when he listens to that, and then he'll withdraw his army and he'll say, okay, everything is fine. Right? So several times this would happen in his life while he is doing this. But then what would happen is, because of this, the ministers would get worried because the governance is getting impacted, right? He's getting, he's got to do his duties. Those duties are getting impacted because of these kind of things that he would do. And it's not so much of an issue in terms of, there are no real operational issues. It's just that people would start seeing this king as somebody who is not in control of of himself, right? So the ministers would get worried about it. So then they will start spreading some kind of wrong messages about Vaishnavas. Those who are devotees of Vishnu are not very, you don't consider them as very pious and true. Vaishnavas steal, they do all sorts of antisocial activities and all of that. So such messages the ministers would spread around, so that Kulasekhara Alwar probably reduces he gets this kind of news around, and he reduces his bhakti, so that he becomes a little more normal. Because for a lot of people, he appeared abnormal. And he would spread such kind of news, so that, thinking that maybe King Kulasekhara will try to reduce his intense devotion, because he hears things about Vaishnava bhaktas in that way, right? That they are doing antisocial or non things which are not good for society, like burglary, thieving, and all sorts of things, right? But then his faith in a Vaishnava bhakta was so high that he would say that I reject all of these claims, because I know a Vaishnava bhakta will never be like that. And then he tells his ministers, go and get me a pot which has a live cobra, a poisonous cobra, and I will put my hand into it. And if my faith in a Vaishnava bhakta is true, the cobra will not bite me. And if you say what you all say is true, the cobra will sting me, or it'll bite me. So with that kind of audacity, he puts his hand into the pot, and obviously, because of his faith, it's not so much because how a Vaishnava bhakta is, because his faith in a Vaishnava bhakta, nothing happened to him. It pulled out his hand unscathed, right? The cobra didn't bite him. So this is one story to show his intensity in devotion and faith, right? And then he had written what is called as Perumal Tirumozhi. So it's composed in Tamil, about 105 odd verses, and they are part of what is called as Divya Prabandham, right? In Vaishnava texts, the 4,000 Divya Prabandhams are considered to be very, very sacred in terms of its content, to the extent that it's called a Panchama Veda, which means all that the Vedas contain are contained in the Divya Prabandham. It is not like it's the fifth Veda, but it's like as though this Veda, or this is the extract of all the four Vedas, is there in this particular. All the Pasurams. Pasurams are verses or songs sung by various Alwars. And the 4,000 in number, that's been collected by Nathamuni, and then it was brought together and compiled. In that, about 105 verses of Kulasekhara Alwar's compositions are there, and that is called as Perumal Tirumozhi, the sacred verses, or the sacred verses or words of Perumal. And Kulasekhara Alwar carries this title of Kulasekhara Perumal. Of all the Alwars, he is the one who carries the title of Perumal. Right? Such an exalted devotee he was. And so later part of his years, he actually gave up his kingly duties to his son and his other relatives, etc. And then he went to Sri Rangam. And he lived there in Sri Rangam in devotion to the Lord. And then there are stories where he has gone to Tirupati also to see Venkateshwara and spend time at Tirumala. And there he has always, his desire has been to be a servant of the Lord, which is dasa. So he always recognized himself as a dasa. In fact, there is one verse in this Mukunda Stotram which describes his state of mind. He says, I want to be the servant of the servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of your servant. So he said, Dasa Dasoham. He said, I want to be a Dasa Dasoham. He says, I want to be a Dasa 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 Dasoham. So I want to be the Dasa of your Dasa of your Dasa. So which means your Dasa's Dasa, which means Bhagavan's servant's servant, his servant's servant I want to be. So I want to be so far removed in terms of my individuality. See, when you're trying to become a servant, you're becoming small in front of that. So when you are removing yourself far, you're trying, in a way, in your mind, you're saying, I'm so small in front of you. So what is happening in the process? I'm dissolving myself. The more I remove myself, so we've always spoken about this, right? You either become complete or you become shunya. You lose your identity. So you become one with the Lord. And devotion, many of them experience this oneness with the Lord. Or you become completely non-identified as an individual, and what only Lord remains. You've heard this Kabir's famous doha we keep repeating, right? Jab main hu hari nahi, jab hari hai main nahi. So that when that Lord is there, I am not there. So how do you dissolve yourself? You distance yourself in terms of your identity. It's not distancing from the Lord. You're making yourself smaller and smaller and smaller in His presence. So to show His glory, saying that I am very small in front of you, O Lord. I'm so minuscule and you are so great. And your grace is what can protect me, save me, and take me across. And this thing, the same idea, he also presents as a prayer to the Lord to say that I want to be the padi at the altar, the Garbhagraha padi, or the step. If you remember, when you go into the altar or into a Garbhagraha or into the temple, we always cross over a slightly large step. That is called as Kulasekhara padi. Particularly in Tirupati and many other Vaishnava temples, it's called as the Kulasekhara padi. Because that padi, the belief is that Kulasekhara himself has become that padi because he asked that from Bhagavan. Bhagavan asked him, what you want? He first said, I want to become a bird. And then he says, oh, I want to become a bird so that I can keep flying around and watching you. And then he realizes that, oh, but a bird might fly away. So then I want to be a fish in your pond. But then he realizes, oh, if there is water that flows, then the fish can go away. Then he says, oh, I want to be the leaf in a branch of a tree around your Garbhagraha. And then he says, oh, but if I become a leaf, then when it is the autumn season, the leaf might flow away, get blown away. And then I says, I want to become the stairs to your altar. I want to become the stairs to your altar. And then he says, oh, but you become the stairs, then the stairs can be redirected to another place. So then he says, no, I want to become the padi, or I want to become that final step inside your altar. And two purposes. And he says, from there, I want to keep watching you. And the belief is that Bhagavan gave him that wish, and the padi is always known as Kulasekhara padi. So that Alwar is from there watching Bhagavan. And look at the devotional aspect there. He has now become a padi, which he says that I want, or the feet of the bhaktas who are coming and seeing you, it can be on me. Imagine how as a devotee he has really surrendered himself to that feeling and experience.
சொல்றேன் படியாய் கிடந்து உன் பவளவாய் காண்பேனே. அவன் படியா இருந்தாதான் உன்னை பார்த்துட்டே படியாய் கிடந்து உன் பவளவாய் காண்பேனே பெருமாளே அப்படிங்கிற.
So which means
பண்டரிபுரத்துலயும் இருக்குல்ல குருஜி, பண்டரிபுரத்துலயும் அவர் பேர் என்ன, ஞானேஸ்வர, அவரும் வந்து he wished to be the steps to the temple, and rather he was buried under the அந்த என்னோட அஸ்தி வந்து அந்த படியில அடியில போட்டு விடுங்க, so that bhaktas can walk
பக்தாஸோட கால் அது மேல. Absolutely correct.
யார் மார்க் ஞானேஸ்வரா இல்ல வேற யாராவது?
I don't know if it's Jnaneshwar, but
நாம்தேவ் நினைக்கிறேன்.
நாமதேவர், கரெக்ட்,
நாமதேவா.
அந்த இடத்துல இப்ப வந்து யாரையும் ஏற விடுறது இல்ல, ஏன்னா கால் போடலாமா அப்படின்ட்டு அது சுத்தி தான் போ. பட் அந்த இடத்துல இது பண்ணி அந்த இது ப்ரிசர்வ் பண்ணி வச்சிருக்காங்க அந்த படிக்க.
Right. So his experience that I want to be under the feet of the bhaktas. Bhaktangri Renu Parakala Yatindra Mishran. See, in the this thing, Taniyan also we read Bhaktangri Renu. Bhakta Angri Renu, the Renu or the dust of the feet of the Bhakta. So I get the dust of the feet of the Bhakta, that itself is sufficient for me. That itself is moksha. There is an Alwar called Tondar Podi, Adi Podi Alwar. Tondar Adi Podi Alwar means his name is such that the Adi Podi or the feet dust of the Tondar. Tondar means a disciple or a Bhakta. Bhaktas, Adi Podi, his feet, dust, that is sufficient for me, for my liberation, for my moksha. So that, which is why they also they seek for dasatvam. Dasatvam means I become the dasa of the dasa. That is sufficient. Because Hanuman is also a dasa. So they don't equate themselves to Hanuman. Such bhaktas, they will say Hanuman was a bhakta to Rama. I can't equate myself to Hanuman and say I am also a bhakta or I am a dasa. I am saying I am a dasa's dasa. So like that, Kulasekhara Padi is the name that's given to that threshold step right outside the Garbhagraha. And out of respect, obviously, we go over it. We don't step on it. And we also touch it to our forehead in form of taking his blessing. So this is Kulasekhara Alwar's story, and he was somebody who had he is known to be an amsha of Bhagavan's Kaustubha. There's a jewel in the marba of in the chest of Bhagavan Narayana. It's called Kaustubha Mani. So he is known to be an amsha of that. And they are all called as Nitya Suris. See, Nitya Suris are those who always reside in Vaikuntha forever with Bhagavan. They are known to be Nitya Suris. Means always in the presence of Bhagavan forever. And they take various amsha, various forms like this. And these are one of those Nitya Suris. One is the Gada, the Shankha, Chakra, Kaustubha, Padma, and all of this. These are all different forms or amshas of Bhagavan himself. The abharanas of Bhagavan themselves are conscious entities. The Abharanas are also conscious entities that because they are Bhagavan themselves. We've spoken about this in a few other verses earlier, where the Abharanas themselves contain as much Shakti or power as, not as much, but it is a conscious principle which can be considered as an aspect of Bhagavan himself, and not it's not a jada vastu. It is not a jada vastu. These are all conscious principles shining as these ornaments on the Sharira of Bhagavan. Because if you look at it, the whole Sharira of Bhagavan is this universe. Everything here is Cheta, the Chetana Vastu and Achetana Vastu. Both are part of his Sharira. Right? So this whole created world is called the Shesha, and he is the Sheshi. He is this body, and all of these are parts of his body. So in that way, the Kaustubha Mani, which is always in the chest of Bhagavan, takes this form of Kulasekhara Alwar. That is the introduction to the Alwar. And he is, as I said, he has written this Perumal Tirumozhi, which is about 105 odd verses, I think. And all he keeps, see, if you look at some of these verses, he is I've translated it here. One, he says, "O Lord, if you desire to take me, grant me the honor of becoming the stone at the threshold of your temple. Let devotees place their feet on me and bless me as they enter to worship you. Even in such a humble form, I would rejoice in eternal service to at your divine abode." Right? So I would want to keep seeing you. Pavalavai kanbene. I want to keep seeing your Pavalavai na enna martham? The mouth or the pearl like
lips, the pearly lips.
Lips, which is so beautiful, like a pearl. Padiya kedend. So padiyai kedend, which means being a padi or being a stone. I want to keep looking at you.
கதவு மூடி இருந்தா கூட பார்த்துட்டு இருப்பார்.
Because he's inside, yeah. So that way and these are all emotions, right? These are all emotions of a bhakta, which is what we say. When emotion, you redirect an emotion into a higher pursuit. In spiritual sadhana, this is the thing. Spiritual sadhana is about whatever emotion you have, whether you have
வாய்க்கு எப்பவும் பவழத்தை உதாரணமா சொல்வா இல்லையா, உதடுகள் சேப்பா இருக்குங்கிறதுனால அதுக்காக அவர் அந்த பவழத்தை உதாரணமா சொன்னார்னு ஒரு இடத்துல படிச்சு. மீன்ஸ் பவழம்ங்கிறது இட்ஸ் இது இல்லையா, சேப்பு கலர் ஆரஞ்சு கலர்ல இருக்கிற கோரல் சொல்லல.
Coral, is it? Okay, it's coral.
அப்போ அந்த வாய் சேப்பா தானே இருக்கணும் இல்லையா, அதுக்காக அதை ஓமையா சொன்னதா நீங்க படிச்சிருந்தாங்க.
Very, very right. Thanks, ma. So it is not a pearl, it's a coral. And coral has this reddish tinge. And lips, when they are slightly reddish, appear very beautiful, right? So pavalam is that coral-like mouth. And then I want to keep looking at that. Now, what happens in that particular state? I want to keep looking at your mouth, or I want to keep looking at your face. Just yesterday in Mahishasura Mardini, we spoke about Devi's face, Vimalendu Mukham, how it removes all kinds of impurities. Malam kulayate. It removes or subdues all kinds of mala. And by looking at the face, you get the feeling of this joy and bliss. And what happens is, this looking at this face is an external, we look at it as an external activity where we are trying to see the face of Bhagavan. But one needs to practice, as you see on the outside, then you close your eyes and then you try to visualize in the inside. And this process needs to keep happening. So as a practice, when we start internalizing that face within, in whatever state you are in, we can quickly bring that visualization of the face to our mind. And whichever form, that the form that most pleases us, we can take that form. And we look at that and we practice looking at that face for a period of time. Many times, it is said that when you keep looking at a particular face for enough amount of time, without conscious effort, our face starts reflecting that. There is one Mata, Guru, with whom a disciple lived for 40, 45, 50 years. And this Guru Mata she was in her own intoxicated state. But this disciple was so absorbed in service to that Guru Ma that all he would do is just keep looking at her face. And when she asks something and she opens her eyes and says, I want this, I want that, bring me this, do that, do this, he will just wait for the next instruction, keep looking at her face. Over time, his face started reflecting her face. If I get that on the internet, I'll show that to you. It's fascinating. This disciple face, if you look at the face of the disciple, now it almost looks like either he is the brother of that Guruma or some very close relative or sibling. But he is none of that. He was some person who found this Guruma somewhere in a kutir and then got devoted to her and stayed and became her dasa and served her. And this is the other thing, right? When you're looking at the face, in a way, you're also waiting to hear the next instruction that Bhagavan has to give you. Why is Kulasekhara Alwar looking at the vai, the mouth of Bhagavan? I don't want to miss the next thing he's going to say, whenever he's going to say. So whatever that pearl that is going to come out from Bhagavan's mouth, I don't want to miss that. I want to keep watching him. This is what Nandi also does. What does Nandi do? Why is Nandi right at that center there, looking at Shiva? He's waiting when the next instruction of the master is going to come. But he is not impatient. He's not saying, it's been 2 days, you have not told me anything. Maybe say that, right? Chumma vaaya paathan irukka mudiyuma. Can I just keep looking at your face and your mouth? I have other things to do. No, it's not like that. So here that devotion is full of possibility. See, notice this. This devotion is not a still, boring, don't know what to do next kind of a devotion. It's not like that. It's not like, okay, now I have to see Bhagavan. How long should I see Bhagavan? That question doesn't arise. The point here is I have to see Bhagavan's face. That's it. I have to keep seeing. To what end? Don't know. Because why? The joy of looking at his face itself is sufficient. In fact, in one of the verses, it will also appear. They'll say, I just want to be at your lotus feet. For what? No particular reason. Let my prarabdha karma do its duty. Let prarabdha do whatever it needs to do. If I need to be a king, I'll be a king. If I have to be a pauper, I'll be a pauper. If I need to be whatever, I'll be whatever. Doesn't matter. Because I am not sitting here looking at your face in anticipation that you're going to give me something. It is not like the servant that we have at home who is waiting for your, who's waiting to see what I can get next. It's not that kind of mindset. A true servant will just sit there patiently, but attentively. See, this is devotion. This is something that we need to understand in devotion. Devotion is not just singing the glories of God and going around and jumping around and praying, and then after that, okay, time out. Now I don't know what to do. Now it's so boring. I've like 12 hours today I was doing bhajans. Now it's so boring. I want to take a break. Let's go watch a movie. It's not like that. There is no boredom because there is no sense of repetition here. Even if you're chanting Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram throughout the day, the next Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram does not feel repetition at all. It just feels endless. It's like, yeah, I have to keep doing this. That's all. How many days today? How many times should I chant? A lot of people ask these questions. How many times should I chant? How long should I chant? These are important. Initial practices, these are important so that you set up a mandala, a time, so that you set up that discipline. Discipline is important to establish a structure. But when you start getting into the state of devotion, you transcend all this discipline. Not because you want to drop the discipline actively. You're not saying, no, it's so boring to get up in the morning. I'm not going to get up in the morning. No, it's not. You're not dropping a discipline actively. The discipline will drop off because you don't need discipline, because you've now transcended the need for external discipline, because your heart has started to feel the joy and the nectar of what comes through this mental engagement, this association, this engagement of the heart. The joy that you receive, nobody has to come and tell. Nobody has to come and tell, do this, because it's no longer an exercise. It is no longer an activity that you're doing so that you get something. You've come to a place where you are rejoicing and having fun and doing this, that you feel like being in that all the time. So this particular feeling is what Kulasekhara Alwar represents. Similar to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where he says that all I want to be is, oh Bhagavan, don't merge me into you. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes and says that don't merge me into you because I want to taste you. I don't want to become sugar. I want to be something different from sugar so that I can taste the sweetness of sugar. So like that, Kulasekhara Alwar is one of those devotees who says, I want to be this individual who is always being in your devotion. And as I said, it is devotion, not a dull, boring kind of devotion. This devotion is ever fresh, ever new. And looking at Bhagavan's face and mouth and all of that is just essentially showing his being attentive. In fact, in the presence of my guru, he would train people to look at his face and facial movements to understand instructions. And my guru will do satsang. He will just look like that and look like that. Those who are nearby will understand the eye movement, and immediately they'll go and do things in the background. Nobody will know. Oh, how did you know? When did Guruji say this? Not know at all. He'll just talking. He'll move his eyes like this. He'll say, so do like that. And then, so there are those disciples or bhaktas will be sitting just waiting for that instruction. When will that instruction come? To rush and go and do that. So what it means is, now how do? We are not going to go get, we can't be sitting and looking at Bhagavan all day long. How do we internalize this? We say we internalize this by becoming attentive. What it means is, essentially what it means is you become extremely attentive to that inner voice. You become attentive to that Bhagavan inside. Practice listening to yourself. Practice listening, not to this chatter. My mind is saying this, mind is saying that. No. If you're able to taste and touch that state of consciousness within, some form of that divine presence that is within, it will only reveal in silence. It will not reveal in chatter. It will let chatter happen. You'll always notice whenever there is chatter happening, that whatever is that divine presence will go into a background, because it is not wanting to reveal itself. When a small child or baby is going and playing and building a castle, a father will not want to come and claim, saying, I only told the child how to build a castle. I showed it like this. No, he will find joy in just seeing that, okay, the child is enjoying, let it do all the activities. He'll sit in the background. So like that, this Atma, or this consciousness, this divine principle which is inside, it will sit in silence only. Because the mind is like this monkey, this little child, it's keeping jumping, doing this, that, and all the chatter, it will keep sitting in the silence. What we need to do is become aware of this chatter and remove this chatter. When we remove this chatter, we will notice this silence or the shining that is happening from inside. When that happens, we will see that attention, then we learn to pay attention to that. And that is what it means by the Pavalam Vai Kanbene. I want to keep seeing the mouth, oh Lord. Being a padi, I want to keep seeing your mouth, which is close your eyes within yourself. Try to become completely attentive to that, and he will speak through you. We will recognize. The question may be, how do I know it is my thought, or it is Bhagavan speaking, or it is that the divine speaking through me? How do I know? Initially, it will be difficult because you're trying to discern between the two. When you make that discernment also silent, when we also stop the chatter of discernment also, which means I'm wanting to, okay, is this my mind saying? No, is this Bhagavan saying? No, maybe, oh, did my guru speak through my this thing? Oh, who is speaking? If you stop, that is also chatter. When you're also trying to analyze whose voice is coming from your head, that is also chatter. When everything becomes silent without your active effort, there's something that will flow through. And it will come as silence. It will be in a the background of it will be silence. And it will not be necessarily trying to solve a problem of your life. Because that voice inside you doesn't care about all your psychological drama. It is just life. And life is trying to express through you in the best possible way. So it is finding an instrument through you. It's trying to find that instrument. And that when that instrument, like the flute, if you fill a flute with water, what will happen? Whatever you blow into it, only water will spray out. Or you fill it with some kind of mud and all that, all the muck. You have to clear that. And then when it becomes, the holes open up, then it becomes an appropriate instrument for music to flow. So this particular thing is wanting to it's waiting for you to become an instrument. And that is the instrument. You become, now he wanted to become a padi. Padi is an instrument to go inwards into the Garbhagriha, saying, I want to be there. So each one wants to become different things. Radha will say that I want to be the flute in Krishna's hand. So each bhakta has their own expression. So Kulasekhara Alwar is such a great devotee, and he has composed this Mukunda Mala Stotram, which has about 40 verses. There are different versions of this, and Gayatri helped me put that together also. So there are different versions, and we picked up a particular sequence, and we'll try to follow this one. And each one has a beautiful, all of Kulasekhara Alwar's verses, the 40 verses are all devotional in nature, which means it's either seeking the Lord. All I want is to be your devotee. All I want to be is your devotee. All I want to be is your devotee. In different forms, he's saying the same thing. But it'll be nice to go through this journey because it inculcates within us repeatedly. When you see how a devotee is seeing the Lord, a bhakta is seeing the Lord, we start practicing that within us. That becomes, it starts it starts growing within us. Some kind of devotion will grow within us. So
இதே சுதர்சன் இவரே இது திருப்பதியை பார்த்துட்டு இவர் என்ன சொல்றாருன்னா, செம்பவள வாயான் திருவேங்கடமெனும் எம்பெருமான் பொன்மலை மேல் ஏதேனும் ஆவேனே, பெருமாளே நான் உன்னோட மலையில நான் எதுவாவது ஆக மாட்டேனா அப்படின்னு அதுவும் சொல்ற. அவருக்கு நீ சொல்ற மாதிரி மலையிலையும் பெருமாள் சன்னதியும் தவிர வேற எந்த ஒரு சன்னதியில இருக்கணும், பெருமாள்கிட்ட இருக்கணும், சன்னதியில இருக்கணும்.
He started with in Tirumala, I want to be something, which is what I described. He wants to be a bird, and then he says bird will fly out, wants to be a tree.
இன்னொன்னு இவர் சான்ஸ்கிரிட்ல எல்லா ஆழ்வார்களும் தமிழ்ல எழுதியிருக்கா, சான்ஸ்கிரிட்ல எழுதியிருக்கிறது இவர்தான் நினைக்கிறேன். எல்லா ஆழ்வார்களும் தமிழ்ல தான் பாசம் எழுதியிருக்கா, சான்ஸ்கிரிட் ஃபுல்லா எழுதியிருக்காரு.
Correct. So he is the only one who has composed in Sanskritam, Kulasekhara Alwar. And so we'll continue to look at this beautiful work from next week. We'll try to see how many verses we'll cover each week, but come with this mind on Saturday mornings when we come together. It is a journey of devotion, but it starts on the outside. You start looking at the form, the image, all on the outside, but bring it inwards, right? With every text that we are doing, it is always about how we bring this perception inwards and try to see that principle within us at all times, right? This is our journey always. At all times, how do I bring this inside? And we use these inspirations from different saints and gurus and acharyas and masters with their works, with their life. Kulasekhara Alwar is one such great Bhakti Sara Kulasekhara Yogi Mahan. He's Bhakti Sara. His name is Bhakti Sara. He's the essence of bhakti. So Mukunda Mala Stotram. So I'll just say what is Mukunda, and then we'll close with that. Mukunda, the name of Lord Krishna as Mukunda, is Moksham Dadati or Moksham Dasyati. The one who gives moksha, he is Mukunda. So when you are reaching out to Mukunda, you are reaching out to that aspect of Narayana who is adept at giving moksha, liberation. So Mukunda Mala Stotram is a stotram or a garland of verses which is you're calling out to Govinda or Mukunda or Krishna as an aspect of one who gives you liberation. Which is why this stotra is very, very important. Because as spiritual sadhakas, that is our goal. That is the purushartha that we are looking for. Moksha purushartha. Right? Moksha purushartha is the only thing. Ityeva. That is the only thing that I seek. So, with that in mind, we will see how devotion plays out in this whole journey of seeking liberation through Mukunda. Okay? Om Kayena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana Va Prakrite Swabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayana Yati Samarpayami. सदाशिवायेति समर्पयामि, जगदम्बिकायेति समर्पयामि, सद्गुरुनाथायेति समर्पयामि। हरि ओम तत्सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।